Hi guys, welcome to Short Skirts and Sarcasm. I'm Caroline and this is my June wrap up. I did read quite a few books in June, so I'm going to go through them pretty fast. But first, coffee. Now I'm going to go through these alphabetically by title, except where there's more than one in a series, then I'm going to just put them all together. And that is what is going to happen with the first one, and that is A Strange Hymn by Laura Thalassa. And this is the second in a series. So this is the Bargainer series. It goes Rhapsodic, A Strange Hymn. Then there's a novella, The Emperor of Evening Stars, and the last one is Dark Harmony. And I thought this was really fun. Our main character, Calypso, is a siren, and she has made a lot of deals with the Bargainer, and each one is symbolized by a black bead, and she has 322 of them on a bracelet up her arm. So she has a lot of debts. And so finally, after 7 years of silence, the Bargainer comes back and is like, time to pay off your debts. And she's like, what took you so long? And he's like, that's a mystery, I'm not going to tell you. And then they fall in love. And as the series continues, they, save the fairy realm. Very fun, fantasy romance, would recommend. Next, I have All Our Hidden Gifts by Caroline O'Donoghue. And this is Caroline O'Donoghue's first YA book. And this is about a girl named Maeve who finds this old tarot deck in, not the basement, in a weird cupboard in her school that she's cleaning out. And she starts to give readings to her classmates, and it goes really well. She's really great at it, even though she's never done it before. And she makes a new friend named Fiona. And Fiona is, she's Irish because she was born in Ireland, but her family is Filipino. And that becomes important as the story continues. And then Maeve gives a tarot reading to her ex-best friend, Lily. A strange card appears that she's never seen before, the housekeeper, and then the next day Lily disappears. And so she teams up with her friend Fiona and Lily's brother Ro, and they try to bring Lily back. And so they delve into dark magic, but it's also very teenagery, and it feels very positive. Like there's a lot of positive friendships, positive romances, and boundary setting, and we love to see it. Then I read An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir, and this is a first in a series. This was a book club read that I was part of, and I thought it was pretty good. This was not something that I would have picked up of my own accord ever. It's kind of Star Wars-esque in that there's an evil empire, and these two essentially teenagers have to team up to take down the empire. So our first character is, I always want to say Leia, which is another Star Wars parallel, but I listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook narrator said Leia, so I'm gonna go with that. So Leia, she is part of a community that has been subjected by this regime, and the secret police come and they kidnap her brother, and she wants to save him, so she tries to join the resistance and becomes a spy in a military training camp. And the other main character, Elias, is a soldier in this training camp, but he is thinking that he wants to leave because he doesn't really love it. And they come into each other's orbits and start working together. And like I said, this is the first in a series, so a lot will happen, and I will read the rest of the series, but it's not very high on my priority list. Next, I read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, and as soon as this came out, I saw it. It has a beautiful cover. It's a Greek myth retelling. It says it's for fans of Circe, and I am a fan of Circe by Madeline Miller, so I immediately picked this up, and I would say that it is very similar to Circe in vibes and style. And I absolutely love this book. This was a buddy read with Sarah from Pages and Prose, and I'm really glad that we got to collaborate on this because we had some really great discussions about it. And I will put her channel in the description box below, and I would really recommend that you follow her. She has a lot of really great insights to basically everything she reads. And so Ariadne is a Theseus and the Minotaur retelling, and I know the basics of that myth, but only as far as Theseus and the Minotaur themselves are concerned. So we go through that part of the story very quickly in the beginning of this book, and then it was basically new territory for me. And it's not really a spoiler because this happens at the beginning, but Ariadne, because she has helped Theseus slay her half-brother, the Minotaur, feels that she needs to leave the island of Crete, and Theseus says, that's a great idea, you can come with me because we're in love. And she's like, yeah, we are in love. We definitely are. So she goes with him, they stop for the night on this island, and then she wakes up and everybody is gone. And so she's just on this island alone. And Theseus is like, well, she's definitely gonna die. My problems are over. Goes back home to Athens. But then Ariadne survives and has built a life for herself on this island. And it switches between Ariadne's perspective and then this perspective of her little sister, Phaedra. And they're both very different young women / girls. And I really enjoyed their differences and their differences in perspective and essentially what they both think of Theseus, because in my opinion, he is the worst. And so getting to witness their stories and having the focus be on them was really, really nice. So if you know this myth, there's probably nothing like new for you, but I really think that the depth of the characters and the writing style are both excellent, and I think you should read it anyway. Moving on, I read Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, and I read this about 10 years ago. No, it can't be that long. Okay, I read this about 8 or 9 years ago, and I didn't like it then. And then my friend Chloe, she was gonna read it because she had gotten it as a gift, and so I said that I would read it with her because it had been a while and I should probably reread it, and it's really short. So I was like, what could go wrong? And then I listened to it again. I read the audiobook this time, and I still hate it. It's very boring and also very dense. And also racist, so I wouldn't recommend this. Read something else. Then I read Madhouse at the End of the Earth. This is a nonfiction book about the ship, the Belgica, which sailed to Antarctica with, I've forgotten the name of everyone on there, but some explorers, and they wanted to explore Antarctica, so they do. And one of these people is Roald Amundsen, who is pretty famous because after this, he goes back to the Antarctic and makes it to the South Pole. But so going into this, I thought it was that story because I had read stuff about that in elementary school 15 years ago, but it's not that story. It is basically the ship sails to Antarctica, gets stuck in the ice, and is there for like 2 years. And it's surprisingly uplifting and funny for a book that is called Madhouse at the End of the Earth, because a lot of people, because they don't see the sun for several months, they have some mental health problems. They also have some physical well-being problems. And so there's a lot of like gross descriptions of scurvy and other ailments. So if you are not into medical grossness, maybe don't read this book. But I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. And this is also not seen, this exploration is not seen as like something that's important. But if you read this, like it doesn't seem important on its face, but a lot of the science that came out of this was really important. And a lot of the people that were on this ship went on to do other significant things. And so this sort of boosted their careers. Then I read One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, and it was great. It was so wholesome and so cute. It is basically a romance between August and a woman named Jane who is cursed to be on the Q line since the 70s. And this story takes place in present day. So they bump into each other on the Q train in New York and get to talking, get to developing a nice friendship. And then August starts to wonder, why is it that Jane, the same person, is always on the Q line whenever August is on the Q line? That's weird, right? And so that's how they figure out that she is actually from the 1970s and stuck in the line. And so they have a romance, so cute, so wholesome. And then they also, with the help of some friends, try to get Jane to be released from the clutches of the Q line. And I thought this was really fun. August's roommates are also all great. They're all different and funny, and a lot of their interactions are just everything you would want from a roommate. Then I read Pale Rider by Laura Spinney, and this is a nonfiction book about the 1918 flu pandemic. And you might remember this book from my Quarter of a Century Makes a Girl Think series, because this was on the 25 highest priority Kindle books that I wanted to read, or ebooks that I wanted to read. And I will put that video in the description box if you want to see it for the first time or relive its glory. And I mean, there's not much to say about this. This is about the 1918 flu pandemic and the government response to it, and the people's response to the government's response to it, and other stuff, and discussions about Patient Zero. And then I read Faces of Gage by Lisa Redfern, and this is a novella about the real person, Phineas Gage, who famously got a long piece of metal stuck into his skull and survived. And so this is his life after the accident, and it's from his perspective, his sister's perspective, and his sister's husband's perspective, because the real life Phineas Gage after his accident had a very significant personality change. So this is sort of an imagining of what that was like for him and for his family. And I thought this was really interesting. Then I read She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. And this is a reimagining of the beginning of the Ming Dynasty in 1300s China. And so our main character is very poor, living with her family. She has an older brother, and she knows that because she is a girl, she basically has no prospects in life. And then bandits come and kill her parents and take everything they had, which was not much to begin with. And then she and her brother are left alone. And then her brother dies. And so knowing that she as a girl has no future, takes her brother's identity and joins the monastery. So that is where our story begins. And she works her way up, goes from living in the monastery to becoming, I think it's a general. She does army strategy and is really good at it. So she's living her life as a man, and as it continues, the stakes of her life get higher, political intrigue increases, and it was really great and very inventive. And I am not well versed in Chinese history, especially not this part of it, but it felt very well researched. So I would really recommend this. It comes out late July. So when it does, get your copy because it's really great. And I think it's also the first in a series. So I'm very much looking forward to the rest of this because it was a great start. And then I read Sweethand by Ng Peltier or Peltier. I'm not really sure how you say this, but this is a very cute romance set in Trinidad. And our main character, I've already forgotten her name because I can remember no one's name. She is a baker and she has a sweet shop, and the sweet shop is called Sweethand. So that's where the title comes from. And she has recently broken up with her crappy boyfriend who is big in the music industry. And she has sworn off all music industry guys until she runs into, or rather is thrown together with, this dude who is a music producer who she's never really liked, but they are both maid of honor and best man at a wedding. It's main character's sister and then music producer dude's best friend. They're getting married. And so they have a lot of wedding planning to do and a lot of collaboration to do. And then they sort of fall into a romance, and it's really cute. I would describe it as a Talia Hibbert-esque romance. There was a lot of mutual respect and helping each other, supporting each other, and boundary setting and boundary respecting. So it does not fall into any unhealthy tropes that a lot of romance genre books do sometimes. So if you're looking for a romance but don't want gross possessiveness or other crap that comes up in some romance novels, read this. And then my feminist book club read for this month was Tall Tales Secret Book Club by Cece James. Our theme this year is cats, and this is a cozy mystery featuring the help of a cat while solving a murder. And this is a pretty short book. There's not a lot of suspense. I think mostly because it's a cozy mystery, not like a thriller mystery. But essentially our main character goes and takes a summer housekeeping job at an old mansion of this broke old lady who hates books. She doesn't allow any books in her house. I mean, this is a red flag if I ever applied for a job and then got it and then they were like, oh, by the way, we hate books, there's no books allowed, I would leave. Anyway, so she gets to this house. There's a lot of staff, and I thought this was interesting, and this was something that came up in my book club discussion as well. If this old lady is so broke, why does she have such a big staff? Anyway, all the staff, they were there at the Great Book Purge where this lady decided she didn't like books anymore, and they have saved a lot of them. And so they have a secret library. And so they also have a secret book club, which is where the secret book club part of the title comes in. And they have a book club. They also talk about the history of this family and the various weird characters that have been around and / still are around. And then of course they solve a murder with the help of the goodest boy, Hank the cat. If I had a cat, I would want it to be like Hank. And then a very different book to this, The Astors by Virginia Cowles. This is a nonfiction book. It is about the Astor family in New York. And I did recently mention this in my Kindle book haul video, so if you saw that, you're probably already familiar with this. It was interesting. I liked the history aspect of it, but I did not like the author's commentary at all. It is very outdated. This came out in 1979, so that's not entirely surprising, but a lot of this Virginia Cowles commentary was pretty gross, and it showed a lot of disdain for people who were not as in society as the Astors, and who were obviously not as wealthy, because the Astors were astronomically wealthy. And a lot of it was also pretty misogynist and racist, and even for 1979, it's pretty bad. So I know Virginia Cowles has written a lot of histories of prominent families. I recently realized as I was going through my Kindle that I also have her book on the Romanovs. So I will probably read that at some point, but I don't think I will acquire any new Virginia Cowles books now that I've read the Astors. For example, there was one of the Astor women was very arrogant and doesn't seem like a very pleasant person to be around. And Virginia Cowles has this commentary that maybe her marriages would have been more successful if her husbands had beaten her. No, that's bad. Even if she was really unpleasant, that's not an excuse for domestic violence. Just get divorced like normal people, like these people did. That seems fine. Moving on to The Idiot by Elif Batuman. And this is about a Turkish-American girl named Selin who goes to Harvard, and this is her first year there. And it's in 3 parts. It's her first semester, her second semester, and then the summer. And she is 18, 19, and she takes this Russian class, and she becomes sort of obsessed with this Hungarian guy who is kind of crappy. And I feel like that's a very first year college student thing to do. And so it's about her Russian class. She's reading sort of Russian short stories, and she's enjoying that. And she also makes another friend whose name I've forgotten. And then they go traveling over the summer, and she meets a lot of different people. And so it's sort of about her finding herself. It didn't resonate with me all that much. I wanted to like it more than I did. And then after Sweethand, I thought it was so charming and wonderful. I wanted something like that. So I did get Talia Hibbert's book, The Roommate Risk, and I loved the Brown sisters, and so I decided that I needed more Talia Hibbert in my life, and I made the correct decision. The Roommate Risk is about 2 best friends who have to live with each other because Jasmine's, her room flooded in her flat. So she has to move out while someone is fixing all the water damage. So she moves in with her best friend who has been in love with her the past 7 years. And then they kind of start a relationship. Well, they do start a relationship. It's not kind of. And it's just really cute because they have a, solid relationship that they are building on top of rather than creating something new. And in general, I do not like this like friends to lovers trope, but this was really well done, so I would recommend it. And then a slight deviation from the norm, I read Kamala Harris's book, The Truths We Hold. And this is just like a memoir of her early life, getting into politics, her marriage, her relationship with her stepkids, and I thought it was fine. I find a lot of political memoirs to be kind of boring, and of course, because it's a memoir, especially because it's a political memoir, there's a lot of, you know, casting yourself in the best light. Yeah, there's nothing really I can say about this apart from, like, I found out some things that I didn't know before, and that's interesting. Then I read Three Daughters of Eve by Adrienne Shafak, and this is an interesting book. I think of all the Adrienne Shafak books I've read, this is my least favorite, but I still really loved it. So this is kind of a dark academia, as it is about Perry and her two friends, Mona and Shireen, and their lives in Oxford during their student days. And so they have a very close friendship, and then they drift apart because something happens with the professor who has cult leader vibes, whose class they all take. And then it's told in present day and then flashbacks to student days. And so present day, Perry is a respectable wife and mother, and then she gets her handbag stolen and she chases down her thief. And it's very uncharacteristic for her, and because of that, she starts to think about her student days and her friendship with Mona and Shireen. That part of the story covers just one evening. So it has dark academia vibes, but it's really not like any other dark academia I've read before. And then last on this list, I read Tower of Swallows by Andrzej Sapkowski. And this is part of the Witcher series, and I really like this. I will definitely reread these books because I don't think fantasy and audio is not always my thing. I forget a lot, but I do remember really liking this, and I'm not sure I can tell you much without spoiling sort of the rest of the series that comes before this, but I will absolutely continue reading the series and then reread them at some point. So that is the list of books. I'm going to go into some stats now. I read a total of 21 books. It came to 7,090 pages. 23% of it was print books, 14% of it was audiobooks, and 62% of it was ebooks. So overwhelming majority is ebooks. That's it. We're at the end. You can like this video, you can subscribe to this channel, you can also follow me on social media. All my links will be in the description box, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.